it's nice to see your names on the screen, and I certainly look forward to seeing everybody in person as well, whenever that's possible. And I'm really craving sitting somewhere in a restaurant or a bar and having a good conversation in person with someone. That said, for now, I guess the video conferencing does give us a chance to get together, to share some of our experiences, to share some of our ideas as well. I told many of you in the beginning of the G2 program that G2 is a lot like a potluck. Potluck in the sense that you bring something, a dish of your own making, and then you're very much free to sample everybody else's. So it's a very good potluck because I think we have some very good chefs, some very good cooks here, and we have firms across the country that represent the best and the brightest of the industry, the best of the brightest of our community, but also people you know from this program, people you've probably talked to. And it's always easier to talk to others that you know and others that you trust. So I'm very much hoping that G2 really proves to be a community of people that share ideas together, that help each other have a better experience. Somewhere in the 1950s, JFK, President Kennedy, apparently said in one of his speeches that if you were to spell the word crisis in Chinese, it will be represented by two characters. One of those characters will mean danger, the other one would mean opportunity. Turns out actually JFK completely misrepresented the Chinese language. But that said, he probably is making a very valid point, at least about business. That in a crisis, we do experience the sense of danger, the sense of needing to protect our clients, to protect our teams, to protect our businesses. But we also experience a lot of opportunity because a lot is changing. And if you kind of really think about it, if nothing changes tomorrow, if our consumers, if our clients do the exact same thing that they have always done, we'll never have the ability to grow. We only grow when something changes, when someone wakes up in the morning and decides that they need to do something different than what they did the day before. So a crisis in many ways is a test. It's a test of resilience, but it's also a test of our ability to adapt, to evolve, to do things better, to do things differently. And that really is the team today. About a month ago, we sent out an email, kind of blasted to the entire G2 community and said, give us your best ideas. Tell us about all the things that you've been doing in the last couple of months, things that you have done to help your clients, to help your teams. And then we picked 5 of those ideas to discuss at more length today. There were many, many, many good ideas, and I'm really grateful for all of you who contributed. As we speak, Lauren is reaching out to many of you, asking for your permission to use those in a report. So we're actually going to publish all ideas in a report, but there were 5 of those that we wanted to discuss at more length today, and they cover different aspects of the business. So I'm very much hoping for a more interactive session. Please don't hesitate to use the chat box to ask questions. We have 5 presenters. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions, but I'm hoping you are asking them questions as well, and I'll read those out loud. In an effort to create a little bit more of a dialogue. So with that said, actually, if I can jump right into it, I want to introduce you to Jeff Sardi. Jeff, he's have participated in the program, and Jeff, rather than trying to tell your story, nothing like hearing it from the horse's mouth, if you don't mind, tell us more about Morton Capital. Tell us more about your firm.
Sure, be happy to. And nice to see everyone. I think it probably says under me, Clarice Sullivan. I am not Clarice Sullivan. I had a login snafu, but Jeff Sardi. Just from a high level, we're a registered investment advisor out in the Los Angeles area. Been around for a very long time. It's predominantly G2 run currently. I'm CEO, of the firm. We've been around since the early 1980s. I should call it around $2 billion, roughly 1,000 families.
Fantastic. And Jeff, shortly after the crisis began, and I know it very much, it's part of your culture and it's part of who you are as a firm to participate very actively in your community, in the Calabasas community. You're very passionate about being a good corporate citizen of that community and actually helping everyone in that community as well. Shortly after the crisis started, you initiated a very interesting program of actually offering free financial planning to members of the community. Tell me more about that idea. How did it originate? Who came up with it? How did you evaluate it? What do you do with that?
Sure, and maybe I'll just quickly start with describing what the program is, and then I'll answer your question about how the idea originated. In essence, it's a complimentary community give back program or initiative where we're really just looking to be a resource in the community to provide financial advice for really, in all honesty, anyone who needs it during these tough times. It could be someone who lost their job, maybe is furloughed from their work, perhaps a small business owner who's struggling with payroll issues and maybe wants to navigate the various government programs, to maybe an older individual who just wants to understand the rules around RMD, or, you know, should they be taking Social Security, things of that nature. So again, really assistance program for anyone of all walks of life. In terms of how this program originated, crisis, about a year ago or so, we really got the whole firm together and we're talking about what sort of services we would like to provide, you know, a few years out. And as I mentioned, we're really a G2 firm, so we're a younger firm in a lot of ways. And so maybe by the nature of that, a bit idealistic as a firm. So there's always been an internal push towards charity and helping the local community. And so one of our advisors in particular stepped up and recommended that we start having, in essence, an open house supporter, where people knew doors are wide open and people in our community can come in and talk with a financial advisor free of charge. So that was something we were really throwing around and thinking maybe that was a 2021 initiative. But back to your initial comments, with everything that happened in the last few months, we viewed this as potentially an opportunity, a catalyst to say, why not? Let's start with that process now. And we kind of went off and running.
How do you let the community know that this is available? How do you advertise that?
So it was actually a fun and creative process for us. Stacy, some of you know, who's our chief operating officer, we work very closely together on a lot of initiatives. The two of us sort of got together and thought, what would this initiative look like? And we created, in essence, a 3-minute promotional video, which was really fun. We had some creativity and it was a little bit of a different feel than we typically do with our other promotional videos. And so long story short, we had that piece. And then we actually started with, in terms of sharing it with our community, with our internal staff, really intentionally with our non-client facing people, to get them engaged, a lot of our operations related people. We had them share it with their friends and family. So that was, the purpose of that was twofold. One, to get them involved, get them to be passionate about what we were doing, for them to have pride in this initiative. But then obviously it would touch people directly related to them in the local community.
Fantastic. So how many financial plans would you say you've created, or do you create actual financial plans, or you kind of more engage in a Q&A type of format?
It's more the latter. We put a lot of thought into truly how deep we can go, and if we're not providing full-on financial types of initiatives, not doing an e-money presentation, it's more back of the envelope around goal setting. I'll back up even a little bit. We had asked some survey questions of just a handful, very high level. What are these individuals' goals? Keeping them up at night, in essence. Then once we gather that data, we set up the call, and then it's really about getting these people organized around what goals do they want to accomplish over the ensuing years. And then once we are able to nail that down, it's really more of a budgeting and savings exercise than anything else. And again, we're an accountability partner in helping them be organized. So no, it's not a full-fledged financial plan, but an organizational tool.
Fantastic. Who are the advisors who participate in that? Is this just a small group of advisors, subset that's dedicated to that, or is it all advisors in the firm exposed to that?
So we really, and Stacy and I intentionally left it voluntary. This was a challenging time for advisors. And advisors are capacity constrained. So we decided to say, hey, advisors, up to you, participate in this. And the overwhelming response, it actually, in all honesty, caught me a little bit by surprise, was yes. And so really virtually every advisor in the firm is participating, which is just really, really wonderful. That data.
Yeah. You know, it's kind of interesting. There's a strong tradition in the legal community, for example, for attorneys to do pro bono work. And this seems to be the kind of culture you're creating as well. I know you're not doing it for selfish reasons, but do you anticipate any positive business impact on that from that as well? Have you seen any positive impact?
Sure, and without a doubt, I mean, this is, of course, a way for us to build our brand in the local community and to do it at the same time. I will say, though, the biggest aspect for us, somewhat, again, counterintuitively, and I hit on this a little bit already, is the effect it's had on our people internally. It's been, our advisors in particular, this has been a very stressful time. I mean, many advisors are probably on the phone or on this call here. It's tough work, and especially come February, March, and April, very stressful work. You're having lots of hard, challenging conversations with clients and potentially working long hours. What we found is was a way for them to step out of that, and it was very, in many ways, cathartic for them to just help. And the generosity and gratitude we've received from people we've helped has been really overwhelming. It's just been really wonderful. So then the result is our advisors and our whole internal team, I just think they've gotten a lot out of it, more from an internal point of view than we even envisioned.
That was going to be my next question. What was the reaction of the people you helped? Did they, I'm sure you got kind of introduced to a realm of emotions. By the way, how would you assign a call to an advisor? If I was to sort of knock on your door and say, hey, I need some help here. How do you assign me to an advisor?
You know, the truth is, I don't have the exact answer to that. Often it was potentially, if it was internal ops person, they would probably pair people together. A lot of it was capacity related, and Stacey, feel free to chime in if you have any other color on that. There wasn't really too much of a science to it, but back to your previous point in terms of the gratitude, we've saved these emails now. Don't get me wrong, our existing clients are very gracious and wonderful people, probably like a lot of you have existing clients who show gratitude, but the gratitude we've seen from this has just been night and day different. Just tremendous outpouring of support and, again, appreciation for the services we've been providing, even beyond what even our favorite clients do. So that's been really interesting and neat.
That is absolutely fantastic. And then, by the way, I can see questions on the text box as well, and those are some of the questions I've been asking. Jeff, perhaps last question from me. Is this something you will continue doing, perhaps following all of this crisis?
The short answer is yes. I mean, this is something we knew we were going to do anyway. As I mentioned, pre-crisis, we were going to do some sort of charitable initiatives very related to our work, financial advice. I don't know what it will look like going forward as we get back to theoretically a more normal world where we can interact in a more traditional fashion, one-on-one with clients. But the fact that we're already doing it, and it was less intimidating, the process, and we always, part of the fear of going into something is it going to be so much work? Are we going to back ourselves in the quarter and maybe then we're not equipped to do all of those questions? We've worked through those kinks, and those fears are now allayed, and so I'd be shocked if we don't continue with this going forward.
Jeff, a question from Casey. Did you actually ask those clients to sign a contract, or was this entirely sort of improvised? Kind of join us in a meeting, receive some advice.
In essence, something in between those two. In essence, there's a disclosure, in essence, that they have to, something very simple that we created that they do have to sign, and I'm sure we'd be happy to share that with anyone who would have interest. It wasn't a full contract or anything, but yes, they did have to, in essence, acknowledge certain things in that contract.
Fantastic. Would you say this is an idea that every firm could use, or are there any limitations or reservations about the kind of firm?
I don't see why not. I mean, everyone else has to make the right choice, and something we struggled with, in all honesty, going into this was capacity of advisors, and would it take them away from the important job that they're already doing? Again, is why we made it voluntary. But again, pretty much unanimously, our advisors jumped on board. So that was really interesting.
That's fantastic. Jeff, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate this idea. And thank you so much for being part of this community, and of course, being part of the Calabasas community as well. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Philip. Appreciate it.
Next, we have Chrissy Antal joining us from Sequoia in Akron, Ohio. Chrissy, I hope you can hear me well.
I can, thanks.
Very much. Your firm is very, very well known in the industry. I think you just received some awards at the end of the year. I think you received award for being best in class in the industry. So you're becoming a better known firm. But still, tell us a little bit about Sequoia Capital.
Yeah, so we are a $4.5 billion RIA. We are based in Northeast Ohio, but we have 6 offices in Southeast Michigan, Northeast Ohio, and Tampa, Florida. We have 90 team members, or around there these days. We have an emphasis on comprehensive financial planning and high net worth individuals and business owners. We have a strategic partnership with a large regional accounting firm, and we've had that relationship for the past 20 years. We were established in 1991.
Chrissy, you personally, I believe, led an initiative to really massively adopt e-signatures in the face of not being able to physically meet with clients and get those signatures done. I can imagine that took quite a bit of training, both for clients and internally with staff, and took perhaps some technology efforts. Kind of tell us more about that initiative. What was the idea? How was it implemented?
So, electronic signature has been around for a lot of years, and we've always tried to push our team to use them more and more. So I've been training the team for probably the last 2 years and tried to push them that way. But I think our delivery was poor, and we would say, hi, client, we could have you sign these things electronically, or we can just send them to you, and we would let them choose. And of course, some clients would say, oh yeah, we'll just sign them in the meeting, or we'll, just mail them or UPS them. And, our messaging had to change. We had to say, okay, we're going to be sending you this electronically. This is how you're going to do it. And then if they had issues or if they requested paper, then we can, go that route instead. But, once the COVID stuff started to happen, we kind of saw the writing on the walls and said, okay, like this is legit going to close our firm down. So I did a big push, another big training a few days before the shutdown. And we do have a CSA in the office every day. So if something comes up and something has to be mailed, it can be mailed to a client, because we have those situations where clients don't have an email or they want to sign physically. So, we had a huge training the one day, and then I just encouraged people to send envelopes to themselves, don't fill out the application completely, just go through all the steps so you can see what the client sees. And, if you need to open an account, that's great, because then you can see the full experience on the client side. We at both Schwab and Fidelity. So I think that was some of the team's hesitation, because we had to learn 2 different platforms. So it's difficult when you're used to Schwab or you're used to Fidelity, switching websites and knowing that they have a different feel about them and different processes. So I think that was a large hesitation, but this has definitely pushed us all to learn it and finally get out of the edge and process them more. So I'm definitely excited.
Fantastic. I'm sure somebody's going to ask, if they haven't asked already, what vendor are you using for e-signature?
So we have been in process to do the do-it-yourself DocuSign and start with Conga, but that is still in the works. So we have just been using Schwab system and Fidelity system right now. Myself and the tech team have been working through Conga to get that up and running, and we're almost there. So we're probably 4 weeks out from implementing it across the firm. But this has been a nice way for the CSAs to be able to walk before they could run. So, we're building a kitchen, and at least they can see the drawings and they're used to DocuSign before they have to go into the kitchen and find a steak knife or something.
Great.
It'll be
and I love the analogy there too. How did you do the training for the CSAs? Because you had to do online training as well, and that's rather unusual for our industry.
Yeah, so we use WebEx, of course, and I push them a lot to on the job training, go in there, play with it, open accounts for yourself. So it's a lot of WebEx meetings, and then we have bi-weekly calls with all of the CSA team where we can talk about best practices, what went wrong, how to make it right, and client success stories. So we have that training every other week where we touch base on it and see how it's been going.
What was the reaction from clients?
I think that they expect it in this environment. And so it's amazing because they have all been trying. We've had clients who have always wanted stuff mailed and they're like, you know what, I can, do an electronic signature. So, I feel like the industry is moving this way anyway. They're expecting it and they see the need in this environment. So I think that it's here to stay and we're going to continually offer this. So, I'm excited about it.
Was there something you learned in this process where you went, well, if I was to do this again, I would do it differently?
Let me think. Yeah, I think it's, what works for your firm. And it would have been nice to have DocuSign and the Conga stuff up and running a little faster, but we didn't see this coming. So, what I worry about is if people are going to be used to the Schwab system and so used to the Fidelity system now, when we throw in the Conga, is that going to take it down a notch and have people be more scared to use it again? I'm afraid of going backwards. And so that is my fear of pushing this new lead. And then people are starting to, be hesitant. So I want to get this out here now while it's still fresh in people's mind and the momentum is still going and our office is still kind of closed.
And possibly this becomes the new standard for how paperwork gets done going forward as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Chrissy, thank you so much. Really appreciate you being part of this conversation, and thank you so much for being part of the program as well.
Oh, thanks.
Wonderful. Susan Mitchell-Tree comes to us from Baltimore, Maryland, and the firm of Berman McAleer. And Susan, again, rather than trying to describe Berman McAleer, tell us a little bit about the firm and tell us about your role in the firm.
Sure. Well, we are a hybrid firm. We have about 425 clients, about $1 billion in assets under management. We have 23 total employees, 6 of whom are partners. Our 2 original co-founders, David Berman and Joe McAleer, and then 4 GT members. Firm was initially started in 1999 in Berman Financial Group, and then David and Joe merged their practices in the early 2000s, and now Berman McAleer. And I am a advisor here. I also handle the marketing for the firm.
And Susan, you're one of the partners of the firm and one of the leaders of the firm as well.
Yep.
Fantastic. So you established a team experience committee, right? Is that the correct title of it?
An employee experience committee.
Employee experience committee. Tell me about that committee. How did the idea originate? What is the charter of the employee experience committee?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think in this industry, we tend to think a lot about our clients. We've been focused on clients, the client experience for a long time at Berman McAleer. So really thinking about what we can do for clients to make their experience working with our firm the best experience that it can be. But we really needed to think about that with respect to our employees. So we've been very focused on our employees for many years, doing lots of fun things, but there was never really a coordinated effort in this. So when it comes to why we decided to do it, we've had a lot of growth over the last couple of years. And so just introducing a lot of new people into Berman McAleer, into a very, very tight-knit culture with 23 people. In polling some of the individuals who found that communication could be sometimes inconsistent, it worked to have those, easy, just kind of impromptu communication sessions when you have a small firm. But when you grow to a certain size, you need some way of communicating that's more consistent so we're all on the same page. And the whole thing was really led by one of our co-founders, Joe McAleer, who was our resident culture keeper. And he really takes that role very seriously. He's a coach at heart. So that really comes through in his interactions with the organization. And this is really his idea, to make sure that we are treating our employees in the same fashion and thinking about it and being intentional with our employees in the same way that we do with clients.
Fantastic. Was the committee started in response to the COVID crisis, or it had been in existence already?
It was actually in existence before COVID, but still fairly new. We talked about it last year at our strategic planning meeting, and it was formed and launched earlier this year. So as I mentioned, Joe is on it as the culture keeper. In addition, we have our COO, who is a member, and then we have two other individuals at the organization. One is our director of insurance operations, and one is a client service associate. We wanted people really broad spectrum across the organization. So we were not looking for this to be just a partner thing or something like that. We really wanted people from all over the organization. I think the most important aspect of whomever you're going to have on a committee like this is someone that is thinking about ways to really get employees engaged, wants to make it fun, really wants to give back and help create that culture that you're trying to create at your organization.
Fantastic. Were there any aha moments as that committee was meeting and was having its sessions? Was there ever an aha moment where, oh, we could have done this differently, or here is a great idea to do something differently?
Yeah. So when the committee was officially formed, they did some interviewing really across the organization, even with the partners, about what were things that we liked, what was working, what wasn't, did we have ideas? Out of that really came the realization that as we had grown, there was a breakdown in communication, and the communication was just not what it used to be for the individuals that were here a while. For the new individuals, there was just a little bit of a disconnect because they were still getting information piecemeal. So this was a way to kind of get everybody on the same page. It was also, we've noticed that when you get to a certain size, even if you have like firm-wide communication sessions and we do every week, we did before the crisis, now we're doing them by Zoom, you have all those people together, but not everyone feels comfortable speaking up when you get to a certain size as an organization. So this is also a way for them to feel comfortable communicating in a smaller session sort of way in order to get their ideas and thoughts heard. So.
Fantastic. We have a question from 17742, and he or she is interested in knowing, did the crisis impact your culture? What was the impact on your culture from the crisis and everyone having to work in a different way?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it
17742 has been known for asking great questions.
I mean, it's hard for this situation to not affect firms across the board. And particularly, I mean, I can speak about our firm. Our culture is so tight. Philip knows our firm well. We just have a lot of fun together. We do. We're more like friends than just kind of work colleagues. We take our jobs seriously, love what we do, super passionate about that. We also really love and care about the people with whom we work. And so when COVID struck and all of a sudden we were all required to be working from home, that in and of itself wasn't an issue. We had put in years ago the ability for us to all work remotely if we needed to. So we already had that disaster recovery, or whatever you want to call it, plan in place to have that happen really seamlessly. So there are a few little glitches, but by and large, that was fine. We'd already been doing, Chrissy was talking about the e-signatures, doing those for years. So we were good on all of that. But the social piece of it, we really just missed each other.
Yeah.
So the client or the employee experience committee really took that to heart, and Joe loves to give gifts. So one of the first things that they did was to send everyone a little care packet at their house of fun, healthy treats, you know, because we're all packing on pounds or working out like crazy. We're at the barbell effect here during COVID. So try to give them a little something and making sure that we're still connecting. I'm connecting regularly on Zoom meetings as an organization. We've done the normal like Zoom happy hours, Zoom lunches, all of those sorts of things. But actually done a lot of different things throughout the crisis to keep us all connected, including just being open and honest with the ways in which we're struggling personally. And that led to us enlisting the help of an outside consultant to come in virtually and do some sessions where we're talking about communication and getting through this crisis and staying connected despite the fact that we can't be meeting with clients personally, can't be meeting with one another personally. We've been doing just a lot of, in-depth heart-to-heart stuff that is very firm and Quir. We've done that for years. So offering those, those services if people want to talk to somebody, one-on-one sessions, outside person. We've brought in an outside person, not only the one that I just mentioned, but another person to really dig deep and root out some, whatever it is, issues between employees or issues that an employee is having. We really strive to know not only our clients, but definitely our employees, not just on a cursory level. We're all human beings and we all bring our stuff with us every day when we come to work. And if your stuff is messing with your head or messing with your heart, then it's going to affect your job and it's going to affect other people with whom you work in your relationships that are so important. So we do a lot of things to make sure that we're all staying connected through this. I think that's the most important thing.
That's fantastic. Amazing. You mentioned care packages. Does that mean that the committee also has a budget?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They have an annual budget and pretty wide latitude in how they, want to spend it. So they've done a couple care packages. We're all online, these days. So we got blue light glasses to help with the computer, Amazon gift cards we've given, and the latest thing that they're putting together, since we live in this, big office building here. I'm in Maryland, just outside of Baltimore. We live in a huge office building. PayPal takes up most of it, and everybody's working from home in PayPal. So our parking lot, which is usually packed to the hilt, has next to no cars in it. So now we're talking about having a tailgate out in the parking lot because we've got all this space and bringing in a local food vendor and everyone coming and socially distanced, but still getting physically together if we can. It's little things like that. So there's definitely a budget for that. As I mentioned, they have wide latitude on how they want to spend it, with the goal, again, of creating that employee experience that's deep and personal and connects us and continues to connect us all, even despite the distancing that's all being imposed on everyone through COVID.
I know you have a lot of fun every year going out on a boat and spending a day together as a team, the entire firm. Do you think that will happen this year? Or is it too early to tell?
Well, David got a bigger boat.
Okay.
So he said, as the firm grows, you got to get a bigger boat. We are talking actually about doing that and how we can do it. Right now, we can't here in Maryland. The number of people that can get together is still 10, and that's hard to have 20-some people at a firm all together on a boat and maintain social distancing. So we've got a couple boaters at the company, which is good. We'll probably have our whole fleet of boats going down the Chesapeake Bay just to be together. But we have started already talking about how can we do boat day and still abide by the rules. So that's an important part of our culture. It's a way to just kind of take your hat off and have fun for the day.
Fascinating to talk about this, and so many questions come to mind, but I swear this is the last one, because I already went way past the questions I had initially prepared. Your chief operating officer joined the firm almost smack in the beginning of this crisis. How do you bring someone on board with your culture when you actually can't really spend a ton of time together, or if any time at all?
Yeah.
How do you integrate someone in your culture virtually?
Yeah. I think introducing anyone at that level, because he came in as a COO, is challenge to be accepted right off the bat. He's a pretty unique guy, I'll be honest. And I'm not sure that everyone could have done what he did, but the manner in which he did it was very disarming, honestly. And we're so thankful that we had him in place going into this, because prior to that, we as the partners are trying to manage the overall operations. That's where we realized that there was a hole in the organization that we really needed someone as the point person from an operational perspective. Having him step into that role with tons of experience in operations, and then all of a sudden we're in the COVID environment where you need someone that can manage the firm at that level. And he did it in a way that was so, like I said, disarming and open, just really open, that he's been like fully embraced in the Berman McAleer culture in way like lightning speed. And I think that speaks a lot to him as an individual, and maybe to us too as an organization. You know, we recognize good stock when it comes by, and he certainly comes from it. So
that's awesome. Susan, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us and sharing your idea and sharing your experience. Region Atlantic in New Jersey, and Matt Masterson. Matt is part of our latest class. Matt, tell us about Region Atlantic. Again, another very famous firm in the industry, but still nothing like hearing from one of its leaders.
Sure. So we've been around since 1982. Today we've got about $4.5 billion under management, based out of Morristown, New Jersey, and now we have offices in New York City as well as Pennsylvania. And we've got about 65 employees. So we've grown quite a bit over the last 5 years since I've joined.
You rolled out a series of webinars seeking to reach out to clients, to explain, to educate. And I know a lot of firms did webinars and continue to produce video content, but tell us about yours. Who selected the topics? How often do you do them? What's the attendance like?
Yeah, so we've historically done them on a quarterly basis. We'll do quarterly market updates on webinars for clients. And, you know, at the beginning of the crisis, you know, our chief investment officer, along with our marketing department, said, you know, we should, you know, try to do, you know, a spontaneous one here to kind of update everybody on what we're thinking about. And things were changing so rapidly for those first few weeks that we happened to be doing one a week there for about, you know, 3 or 4 weeks. And then from that, we had such great response from our clients, other professionals, prospective clients, that you know, we continued and got other folks involved in the firm. So one of my roles at the firm is I chair our financial planning committee. So we did a webinar on, you know, the CARES Act, what it means for our clients. A webinar about, you know, what happens if you're retiring into this type of environment. A webinar on behavioral biases and how they put themselves in this environment. So you know, they started out an hour long, and you know, what we've kind of learned going through this process is that, you know, 30 minutes is probably the right amount of time. So we've been doing 30-minute webinars for the last 12 weeks now, and you know, still have about 250 to 300 people tuning in every week. So
I was going to say that was going to be my next question. What's great response? 300 people joining those webinars. That's a good sized conference right there.
It is, yeah. It's been a nice response, and you know, it's, you know, one, I think goes to our advisors, is our clients have a very high level of engagement, which is great. But you know, it's also hats off to our marketing department. So you know, they've been marketing this in other channels, you know, such as LinkedIn. You know, doing digital marketing on Google, local patch websites. So it's been a nice way to stay in front of our clients and help take some of the communication pressure off our advisors. But also it's opened up, you know, a lot of folks to Region Atlantic and what we do.
Interesting. Who are the presenters at those webinars? It's always interesting because in the G2 program at the very end, and many of you are familiar with the process, we actually ask you to present. So those of you that are current participants, that's coming your way. Those of you that graduated know the feeling that all of a sudden you're in front of an audience it turns out that the advisors most advisors are not very familiar with being in front of a large audience. They're used to an audience of 1 or 2 or 3. Who are the presenters? Did you train the presenters, or how did people react to all of a sudden being presenters in front of 300?
Yeah, so our chief investment officer is on every one of the webinars, either as moderating it and guiding it, and he's on CNBC pretty frequently, so he's all trained up. But there's 3 of us who are fairly young and haven't done a ton of presentations, especially in webinars, and so it's been a little bit of trial by fire,
Yeah.
and the painful exercise of watching yourself afterwards and learning what you're doing wrong. So that's been fun. I hate watching that the next day, but it's been important to get better.
Do you track who is actually on the call? Do you in some way track the participants and then connect it to your CRM systems, or in another way sort of capture that fact, or do you just let that be?
Yeah, we do. So we actually Zoom's interface for webinars is pretty great. It allows you to track who's actually logging in and how many minutes they're spending on the call active too. So you don't get credit just for logging in. I can see if the client was there for 5 minutes or if they stayed the entire time. And it also tracks questions that they're asking, because we don't, not necessarily, we always leave time for questions, but we don't always get to every one. And so that allows our advisors a chance to follow up afterwards. And then from a CRM standpoint, we use Dynamics, and so those will get logged in there through an integration with HubSpot, which is our marketing software.
Oh, very cool. Question comes from Chris Quir. Do you track the rate? How many of the participants are not clients, or who are potentially either centers of influence or potential future clients?
Yeah, we do track that. It's about 75% clients and about 25% other professional and folks that are just new to Region Atlantic. So the marketing efforts definitely, or the last especially.
The participation you get is mesmerizing to anyone who organizes calls like this. Is there some advice you would give to a firm that's perhaps considering launching webinars, or is doing webinars but wants to increase attendance to them?
Yeah, I think the marketing aspect is really important. So, our marketing team to our clients is typically blasting out the webinar invite on Friday for the weekend, and then following up with another reminder on Monday for the webinar that's held Wednesday. And then same thing on LinkedIn. They create a post for us. We all share it. Everybody at the firm, so you get a lot of looks that way. And the digital marketing on Patch. I think the part that I think is really important, what gets people coming back, content's really interesting, and the presenters have a good dialogue together. So that's something that we work on a lot. We typically do 2 run-throughs of the webinar before we actually do the actual webinar on Wednesday. So we'll do a dry run on Monday and Tuesday, kind of work through the handoffs and what we're going to talk about. And so by Wednesday it looks really polished, but it's certainly not that at the beginning of the week.
Fantastic. So you do these, CNBC style, highly professional, very important topic calls, but you also do calls with kids, which was kind of a fascinating idea. Tell me about the calls with kids.
Yeah, so we, as a firm, dating back, this started in 2008, 2009, is we started doing Monday morning meetings where the whole firm would get together, and it was really a way for advisors to hear from the investment team on our latest thinking, so they had the right information to go back to their clients. Over the years, it's transformed where it'll be more focused on financial planning, marketing, just what's going on. And so when this started, we were really worried about the culture and being able to see each other, and so we started instituting additional calls on Thursdays where it's a little bit more loose. So at the beginning, for anybody who has young kids at home can understand, once in a while you've got a kid climbing on you during the call, and so we actually decided to encourage everybody to bring their kids on the call. So everybody, unless you're talking, is on mute, but it's fun just to be able to see everybody and their families. The kids like seeing each other which is pretty cool. So it's been a good way for us to kind of keep in touch and actually get to see a side of our employees that maybe we don't see in the office all the time. So that part of it's been really nice.
Fantastic. Matt, thank you so much for joining us again, and thank you for sharing your experience. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Philip.
And last but not least, we have Dejan Gabianelli. Dejan joins us from Parallel Advisors in San Francisco, and as with everybody else, Dejan, tell us a little bit about Parallel Advisors. You actually have been in the news lately, so you're another famous firm, but tell us about the firm.
So we're an RIA founded in 2006. We're headquartered in San Francisco, but we have 5 offices: San Francisco, Dayton, Ohio, Denver, Honolulu, and Oklahoma City. Those are our offices right now. We've got about 2,200 clients, $3 billion under management, 60 employees, and 28 of whom are shareholders.
Fantastic. And Dejan, your role in the firm?
So I'm president and CFO, which is kind of a maybe unusual combination. So I wear a lot of hats. I wear a marketing hat, I wear HR hat, kind of COO hat, and CFO hat.
Fantastic. And a graduate of the first G2 class.
That's right.
Which it feels like such a long time ago, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, that's great.
I know when this all started, and it's very interesting to reflect on the sort of the trajectory of the crisis. But back in March, where things were looking very gloomy from a financial perspective, particularly with the stock market, you went through a very extensive amount of budgeting. And of course, you being the CFO, you led that effort. Sort of tell us about your budgeting and financial decision-making at the time.
Sure. So every year we do a budget, but we also, I think what's smart from our perspective is to do contingency planning within the budget. So we always set aside various expenses that if things were to turn, we could pause or eliminate or manage in some other way. So that was really helpful in March when we saw the market plummet and we went to contingency planning. But we also did budget sensitivities too, to figure out where our tolerances were, where our break even was. So we did a lot of planning around that and then made decisions on those expenses that we wanted to at least pause. We paused things that we wouldn't lose investment in. If a project we had started that we didn't want to have to restart and reinvest in, we kind of kept those projects alive. So we had some different criteria for how we would manage those expenses, what we would take out, what we would keep in. And our number one priority was keeping our people. So we let some other things go or kind of put on pause so that we would maintain our folks.
Fantastic. What were the kinds of initiatives that you kept investing in?
Well, for one, we're upgrading in Salesforce from Classic to Financial Services Cloud, and we'd already invested in an agency that was going to do the transition for us. So it became the type of thing where if we hadn't continued with that project, we would actually lose our Salesforce license or we'd be paying duplicative bills, which didn't make sense for us. So we decided to keep that initiative. There's another plan we had, which is to invest in some HR software. And we decided to hold off. That would be an example of something we held off on, not particularly urgent, necessary, but not urgent. So we held off on that until we see what Q3 billings look like.
Fantastic. What about your marketing initiatives? Do they continue to be priority or somewhere in the middle?
You know, that's always interesting, right? Because I think it's common wisdom for most people that marketing's typically the first thing to go, although it sounds like not for some of the folks here on that call. So we did put some marketing efforts on hold. We have an outside marketing consultant that we use, and he was doing some rebranding and some identity work for us, and we actually put that on hold. But we also still continue to do our quarterly newsletters, and we've been reaching out to clients regularly. So it's been kind of a hybrid.
In a large and complex partnership as you are, and you're a large firm with a significant number of partners in different locations, who participates in the budgeting decisions, and how do you communicate the decisions made by sort of the budgeting committee or the CFO to the rest of the firm? Mm-hmm. Is it a collaborative process? Is it more of a top-down process?
It's pretty collaborative. We have a management team that meets weekly, which is our C-suite. And so I propose a budget. I actually collect information from all the different players in the firm, directors, C-suite players, and kind of consolidate the information, cull it down, prioritize items. Then we meet as a management team, review that. And then we have monthly principals meetings as well. So we get all the shareholders together and then we kind of go through the budget at that point. And so when we kind of revised it based on the market situation in March, I basically went through those priorities, explained the rationale for why, which items would stay in, which ones wouldn't. We discussed it as a group, made some adjustments, and then we've revised our budget.
During that budgeting process, did you look at the capital levels you considered to be necessary, and sort of what reserves or what capital balances were you looking for particularly back in the days of March, the dark days of March?
So let me just go back. So what happened in the fall, we were started to look at partners and investors in the firm for a couple of different reasons. One, we were interested in accelerating our organic and inorganic growth. So we were looking for a capital partner. And the other, with some anticipation that at some point the market would correct, and this is back in the fall, so kind of pre-COVID, we also wanted to shore up our balance sheet and maintain the stability and durability of the firm. So back in the late fall, we started looking for partners who could help us with both of those things. So that really helped in March when we, when things kind of went cattywampus, that we had that kind of partner. And in fact, we didn't actually close on this investor deal until May 1st, but we had this partner kind of lined up and we were working on the paperwork and things at that point. So it felt there was some comfort in knowing that we had a partner that could really shore up our balance sheet should we need it and kind of help us through any kind of market downturn.
Yeah, you closed in May, but this process continued through some of the worst days of the market at the time. Mm-hmm. What was the impact on what was happening on your negotiations and conversations with your capital partners? Obviously, they didn't break down. How did you keep them alive?
Yeah, I would say it did stall for a moment. We had a moment where we thought, okay, this isn't going to happen.
They went like,
everyone kind of said, let's just take a breather. So that was a little bit of a concern for us. But I think that the reality is that our partners, it's Emigrant Partners, they're part of New York Bank and Trust, which is a privately owned bank out of New York with the Milstein family. And they were really, what's great about them as a partner is that they're long-term money for us. They're long-term partners of ours, as opposed to a private equity firm that's going to be in and out in 5 to 7 years. So they really were looking at the long picture, which helped a lot during this time, because if someone were just thinking about short-term investment, you would have changed the economics or maybe even killed the deal entirely. So having a long-term capital partner was really key for us and what we wanted, one of the criteria that we wanted from the beginning in a partner. So it really helped.
Fantastic. Diane, thank you so much. Thank you for joining us as well. And once again, thank to everyone. To Jeff, to Chrissy, to Susan, to Matt, to Diane, thank you for joining us and contributing your ideas. Thank you to all of you who are also asking the questions. As I mentioned, we intend to actually publish all these ideas, and there were many other wonderful ideas that we got from all of you. We intend to publish them in the next couple of weeks or so. Just so we kind of create a library of shared experiences and things that perhaps we can all try to continue improving our firms, continue improving the experience of both clients and, of course, our teams as well. We will continue trying to bring us together as a G2 community, past and present participants, mentors, and team members of all the firms. As they say, misery likes company, and it's kind of miserable from time to time. If nothing else, it gets lonely sitting at home, at least for me. So hope that we can continue coming together, sharing ideas, communicating with each other, helping each other as much as we can. If you have ideas about topics or questions that you want us to explore, please don't hesitate. Otherwise, we hope to see you again sometime in June. And hopefully by the time we see each other in June, it's also legal to once again be attending a restaurant or a bar. So very much thanks to everybody who came to this, everyone who joined us, and look forward to the next one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.